Imagine waking up tomorrow. You reach for your phone. Every screen on Earth is permanently black. The internet is completely gone. How long would you survive? You think the internet is invincible. You picture it as a massive, untouchable cloud. But the cloud is a complete lie. The internet is a physical machine. It runs on millions of miles of fragile cables. Most of these cables are buried deep underwater. They are wrapped in heavy copper, and copper has a fatal weakness. It acts like a giant antenna for magnetic energy. Right now, a countdown is quietly ticking above your head. The sun is constantly boiling. It spits out massive waves of electromagnetic energy. Mostly, our atmosphere blocks this radiation safely. But every century or so, the sun violently erupts. We call this a coronal mass ejection. A massive wall of magnetized plasma slams into Earth. It triggers a severe geomagnetic storm. But that's not the strange part. The strange part is that we already survived one. In 1859, the Carrington Event hit Earth. It was an astronomical solar storm. Telegraph wires suddenly burst into flames. Sparks flew out of communication machines. Operators were severely shocked by their own equipment. The night sky glowed bright red across the entire planet. People in the Caribbean thought it was morning. Birds woke up and started singing at midnight. Gold miners began making breakfast in the dark. In 1859, we had almost no electricity. The damage was easily contained and quickly repaired. Today, our entire civilization is wired tightly together. We have built a giant trap for solar energy. If a Carrington-level storm hit right now, the results would be catastrophic. The global power grid would overload and melt down. Transformers would physically explode in the streets. Cities would instantly plunge into total darkness. But what happened next was worse. The power grid can eventually be rebuilt over time. The internet cannot be fixed so easily. The underwater cables connecting our continents rely on electrical repeaters. These repeaters are spaced every 30 miles to boost the data signal. They push the light through fiber-optic tubes, but they are incredibly vulnerable to geomagnetic currents. A massive solar storm would fry these repeaters simultaneously. The cables themselves would survive, but the data would stop moving entirely. The continents would instantly be cut off from each other. North America could not communicate with Europe. Asia would be isolated from the rest of the world. Global financial markets would freeze in a single second. Credit cards would instantly stop working. Trillions of dollars of digital wealth would evaporate. Supply chains would shatter overnight. Supermarkets would empty out in hours. Hospitals would run out of life-saving medicine. Researchers later discovered something disturbing. In 2012, Earth was nearly struck by a massive solar superstorm. It missed our planet by just 9 days. If it had hit, global supply chains would have collapsed completely. Airplanes would have been grounded indefinitely without radar. Financial records would have vanished into thin air permanently. Water pumps and refrigeration systems would have stopped working. Tap water would simply stop flowing. Millions of people would have starved. And nobody knew how incredibly close we came to total collapse. Governments kept the near miss quiet for years. They did not want to trigger widespread panic, because there is absolutely no defense against a direct hit. We cannot build a shield large enough to protect the Earth. The real reason was hidden for years. Our infrastructure is simply too fragile. Engineers built the internet for speed, not for survival. They prioritized cheap materials over durability. They assumed the space weather would always remain calm. But space weather is never calm for long. The sun operates on an unpredictable 11-year cycle. We are currently entering a period of maximum solar activity. The sun is becoming increasingly violent and unstable. Sunspots are appearing faster than scientists predicted. Each sunspot is a potential loaded weapon. And our magnetic field is actually weakening right now. Our north magnetic pole is shifting at record speeds. We are losing our natural shield right when we need it most. A direct hit is not a matter of if. It is strictly a matter of when. Every day the sun rises, we roll the dice. Most people believe the government has a backup plan. They assume secret bunkers contain emergency servers. They think satellites will keep the internet alive. But satellites are even more vulnerable than ground wires.
Severe storm would cause the atmosphere to physically expand. The extra gas would grab onto orbiting satellites. Satellites would experience massive drag and fall out of orbit. They would burn up in the atmosphere like shooting stars. GPS networks would crash entirely. Navigation systems would fail on every ship and plane. The world would suddenly go blind and deaf. The military would lose contact with its own submarines. The number everyone remembers is misleading. Scientists usually say we have a 1% chance of a direct hit every decade. But new ice core data shows extreme storms happen much more frequently. Ancient ice samples contain massive spikes in radioactive isotopes. These chemical traces are trapped frozen in time. These spikes prove the sun regularly unleashes devastating flares. Some of these ancient storms were 10 times stronger than the Carrington Event. They hit Earth long before humans invented electricity. If a storm that size hit tomorrow, civilization would reset entirely. We would be thrown back to the Victorian era in seconds. Without the internet, modern logistics simply cannot function. Food cannot be transported to cities. Fuel cannot be pumped at gas stations. Water cannot be pumped into homes. Law enforcement relies entirely on digital communication. Society is only 9 meals away from absolute anarchy, and the clock is ticking down right now. Engineers are rushing to patch the vulnerable repeating stations. They are installing heavy shielding on critical internet infrastructure. Power grids are testing emergency shutdown protocols. If they detect a flare early, they can turn everything off. Shutting down the grid might save the transformers, but we only get a few hours of warning. Light travels from the sun to Earth in 8 minutes. The solar plasma travels slightly slower, giving us a brief window. But human bureaucracy is notoriously slow. By the time the order is given, it will be too late. It is an impossible race against the immense power of the sun. You cannot shield millions of miles of exposed copper wire. You cannot wrap the entire planet in lead. We built a modern world entirely dependent on fragile, invisible signals. We turned data into the lifeblood of human survival. We trusted our future to delicate wires buried in the ocean mud. Our entire existence relies on a delicate balance in space. The internet is not a permanent fixture of human history. It is not an immortal cloud of knowledge. It is a temporary, fragile luxury. It is a machine waiting to be unplugged, and the sun will eventually claim it back. We are floating too close to a boiling nuclear reactor. One massive flare is all it takes to end the digital age. So the next time you browse your phone, or send a message across the world, look out your window at the daytime sky. Stare up at the blinding light. The star that gave us life will be the exact thing that turns the lights off.